Psychology has long shown that desire is not created by presence alone. It is shaped by uncertainty, by perceived value, and by the amount of emotional investment involved. People rarely obsess over what feels completely guaranteed. They obsess over what still feels meaningful enough to lose. So when a woman starts sensing that a man is always available, always eager, and emotionally surrendered too quickly, his presence can stop feeling valuable and start feeling predictable. And the human mind almost never keeps chasing what it already feels it has fully secured. That is not necessarily coldness or cruelty. It is often just the way attention naturally protects what feels rare and meaningful. The moment a woman feels she no longer has to earn your attention, something subtle starts changing inside her. And most men miss it because nothing dramatic seems to happen at first. She may still reply, still smile, still enjoy being around you, but the emotional current has already shifted. Attraction is not sustained by availability alone. It is sustained by meaning, and meaning starts to weaken when something valuable begins to feel automatic. This is where many men make the wrong assumption. They confuse access with progress. They think that if she replies quickly, stays close, or accepts their attention, then things must be moving forward. But sometimes she is not moving deeper at all. Sometimes she is simply receiving what has become easy to receive, and the human mind rarely protects what feels endlessly available. It protects what feels selective. Then your energy starts working against you. The more you rush to reassure her, the more you explain yourself, the more quickly you hand over all of your emotional weight, the less space she has to feel your absence, your standards, or your center. She no longer feels she is getting closer to a man with a life, a rhythm, and a strong inner world. She starts feeling she is in front of someone whose emotional state is now too dependent on her response. And dependency changes attraction much faster than most men realize. When your attention becomes too easy, it stops feeling like a reward and starts feeling like a resource. She no longer has to wonder whether she has your interest. She no longer has to feel the tension of gaining your trust. She no longer has to invest enough to discover your depth. Everything arrives before she has emotionally met the value of it, and when emotional reward comes too early, the experience often feels flatter than expected. Not because you lack value, but because value shown without pacing is often felt without impact. There is another layer many men never notice. Women are often highly sensitive to emotional gravity. They pay attention not only to what a man gives, but to what his giving says about him. If he gives too much too early, it can quietly signal that he is trying to secure connection before it has naturally been earned. It can feel less like confidence and more like urgency, less like generosity and more like fear of losing the chance. And urgency, even when it is sincere, creates pressure where attraction once had room to breathe. That is why some women stop chasing, not because they lost every feeling, but because the dynamic became too one-sided. The moment she feels she no longer needs to lean in, wonder, ask, or risk anything, her own investment begins to drop. The chase dies because the balance dies. Attraction needs movement from both sides. It needs the feeling that there is still something to discover, still something to unlock, still a reason to step closer. When one person has already placed everything on the table, the other often stops moving, not because the table is empty, but because nothing is left to unfold. And that is the painful irony. Men often become too easy when they are honestly trying to be good. They think consistency means constant access. They think honesty means immediate emotional exposure. They think effort means removing all uncertainty. But mature attraction does not need games. It needs proportion, timing, openness, and self-possession. A woman does not stop chasing because you cared. She stops chasing when your care no longer feels grounded in strength. The moment it starts feeling like she has become the center of your emotional stability, the dynamic changes, and once that happens, what she feels is no longer curiosity. It becomes comfort without tension, and comfort without tension rarely keeps desire alive for very long. In the end, the hardest truth for many men is not that she stopped chasing, but understanding why she stopped. Because most of the time, they were not pushed away for being too cold, too distant, or too hard to reach. They were slowly lost in a deeper emotional sense because they became too easy to secure, too available, too quickly centered around her. And once a woman feels she fully has you before she has fully chosen you, something fragile inside the connection begins to collapse. That is what many men learn too late. Attraction does not only die from neglect, sometimes it dies from overexposure, from giving too much certainty before the bond has enough depth to carry it, from placing your emotional world in her hands before she has truly earned the weight of it. And the painful part is that this usually comes from sincerity, not manipulation, from wanting to love well, but not realizing that love without self-possession can lose its shape. So the lesson is not to become cold, not to play games, and not to punish women with distance. The real lesson is to stay rooted in yourself while connection is still forming. Let her feel your care, but let her also feel your standards. Let her see your warmth, but also your center. Because the right woman does not value you more when you become easier. She values you more when your presence still feels earned, balanced, and grounded in something deeper than need. And the moment you understand that, you stop trying to be chosen at any cost, and you start becoming a man whose value cannot be rushed, borrowed, or casually consumed.